Officials from top tech companies and government agencies met Thursday to discuss securing the 2020 election from cyber attacks. The meeting included representatives from Facebook, Google, Twitter, and Microsoft, as well as the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, and Office of the Director of National Intelligence. The New York Times reports the meeting was held to discuss preventing foreign interference seen in the 2016 presidential election. During a national security summit Thursday, the General Counsel for the National Security Agency warned the U.S. is in the middle of a, quote, global cyber pandemic. He also said the 2018 midterm election was the safest we've had in recent times in regards to cybersecurity. Let's bring in CNET senior producer Dan Patterson. All right, Dan, we don't know much about the substance of this meeting, but what is the fact that it was happening at all? Tell us about the seriousness of the threats to the 2020 election.
Well, Nathaniel Gleicher, who is Facebook's head of cybersecurity policy, issued a statement around the same time as the meeting today saying that, look, we are working with federal, state, and local, not just law enforcement agencies, but intelligence agencies. This is in stark contrast to what Facebook said prior to the 2016 election and immediately afterwards, where they seemed to dismiss questions of interference. So this is at least very strong policy and working with not just our national intelligence agencies that we enumerated at the top of the segment there, but also local agencies as well. That is because a lot of this misinformation won't just come from nation states.
All right. Well, there is also a new report out from the New York University's Stern School, which lists 8 predictions about the role and types of disinformation that will appear in the 2020 presidential election. Walk us through some of this.
So the Stern School report, which is a 28-page PDF, I encourage all of our viewers to read this, but it's almost verbatim similar warnings that we hear when we attend conferences like the Black Hat Cybersecurity Conference and speak with cyber experts. Now, just a few of these concerned. At the top of the list, unwitting Americans, meaning we hear these reports of disinformation and misinformation, but we're not likely to believe them ourselves. The players, we will see that Russia is not the only nation state who will get involved. They also enumerate Iran and China. I'd like to add to that list. This is not a part of the Stern list, but I would like to also add that North Korea is certainly a cyber actor that we can anticipate being involved in the 2020 election. They also say that WhatsApp, which is a Facebook-owned property, should be, and Instagram should be considered prime targets. Domestic misinformation and for-profit firms. This is something that is relatively new, but we look at some of the motivating reasons why threat actors get involved in election hacking, and sometimes it's just for money. Finally, they also say digital voter suppression, which is not the same as election security, but it's important, especially when we look at places like Georgia, which had kinetic or actual voter suppression. We're now seeing instances of digital voter suppression. So that's what Stern enumerated. These threats are a pretty good place to start when we look at election security and propaganda.
So you mentioned Russia a moment ago. How have Russia's previous actions actually set the stage for future disinformation campaigns?
It's fascinating. When we look at Russia, we can essentially say that they set a template. They are not just involved in the United States. They use Ukraine as a test bed for cyber attacks that they launch against the rest of the world. And they've kind of developed a playbook by messing with Ukraine that others have looked at and said, hey, that's very effective. And other nations, especially Iran and China, have looked at what Russia has done in the United States and saw that as effective. In fact, we see that China is deploying very similar tactics in Hong Kong when we look at the misinformation campaigns that happen there. So another thing that's very important to remember here is that often these nation states will use misinformation to exaggerate their capabilities, particularly Iran. This is a hallmark of Iran, that they are very good with using small groups to target cyber activities, but they try to outsize or make their activity look as though it's outsized so they can intimidate other actors in the space.
Right, it's a whole new world out there. Dan Patterson, Dan, thank you so much.
Good to see you.